Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the sixth edition of the Mentor Conclave. It's been 13 years now that we embarked on a journey called the Mentor magazine. And through this 13 years, our effort has always been to pick up best practices in the space of school education and share them with practitioners across the world. In these 13 years, really happy you know, to report the fact that Mentor is probably one of the most respected print magazines out there. And one of the reasons why I think we've get the kind of respect we do is because we've stayed very true to our cause. We've never printed an editorial. We've always brought out real stories. In fact, Mentor today is an extremely popular magazine in the Middle East as well, because we also have a Middle East edition. It was way back in 2011 that we conceptualized that apart from sharing knowledge and information through a print material, let's get people together, the educators, the practitioners together. And the Mentor Conclave idea came up. And in over 6 editions that we've held over the years, which was on a physical format, we've had hundreds of educators participate. And this year, we have the Mentor Conclave going digital, like the whole world has. And we are now in our 4th session, and this is titled Juggling, the Online and Off and In-School Challenge for Teachers. All of us are aware that the past year or so has been extremely challenging from an education standpoint. And if there's one superhero that stood out and made a huge difference to the way children learn and education continues, that's been the teacher. But along with the heroism also came a lot of challenges, a lot of issues. We had to talk about what have been those lessons in the past year and moving on into how do we plan and prepare for the years ahead. So I've got with me a fabulous set of experienced educators and leaders in their own space. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our panelists. Our first panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is the founder and founder-principal and director of the Gitanjali group of schools, and an amazing, passionate, seasoned educator who's received the award of the best principal in the teachers category from the President APJ Kalam himself in the year 2005. And she is a known name in the ICSE school circles across the country for a remarkable institutions that she runs called the Gitanjali, based out of Hyderabad. So thank you very much, Gita, Karan, ma'am, for joining us here. It's such a pleasure to have you. And, to have such a seasoned educator coming on the digital medium, that shows the kind of changes we've had in our education system. Thank you for joining us. Our second panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is a fabulous educator, ever smiling, Dr. Trista Ramamurthy. Her looks are very deceptive. She is very hardcore entrenched in the space of education. She is the founder and the managing director of the EKYA group of schools based out of Bangalore, with several branches. She's also the provost for the CMR University, and she handles academic affairs for both the university as well as for the schools. And with her charm and her experience, she's doing a fabulous job. So welcome, Dr. Trista. It's great to have you here at the Mentor Conclave. Our third panelist, ladies and gentlemen, has been an educator, a thinker, a change maker, who's been contributing her experience to the space of education through her organization called Shikshangan, which is based out of Pune. Devika, Nadig has been supporting and guiding schools for over 3 decades. In her past avatar, she's been a teacher and a principal of schools as well. Her work is focused on the pursuit of excellence in education, and she describes it as a journey till the end. So good luck on your journey, Devika. It's been a fabulous one so far, and all the best in the years ahead as you keep smiling and adding value to a lot of schools across, not just in India, but in many other countries as well. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is a very dear friend and a fabulous educator, thinker, author, TEDx speaker, and a very renowned trainer and a lifelong learner, as she calls herself. She provides key insights for educators, parents, and lifelong learners to navigate education in the 21st century. And what a relevant person to have with us in our panel today. A visionary thought leader whose passion for lifelong learning propels her forward to create a world that's empowered through education. She happens to be the director of the Glendale group of schools based out of Hyderabad. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Dr. Anjum Babukhan. So thank you so much, Anjum, for being here with us. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you. And completing the lineup, we've got someone who we've woken her up early in the morning, based out of the United Kingdom. That's assistant head teacher of the Queen's Road Academy in Barnsley in the United Kingdom, Bhavna Karan. Bhavna has been working in her current school for the past 9 years, has been instrumental in supporting failing schools. And I love that about her because schools face a lot of challenges and she thrives in change, bringing about change in these schools and achieving good inspections. Currently, she works alongside the head teacher and the curriculum leader to ensure that an engaging, vibrant, and exciting curriculum is delivered. She's done a master's in business and moved from a corporate world into the schooling world. Bhavna, good morning and welcome to be a part of the Mentor Conclave. So, ladies and gentlemen, the format for the Mentor Conclave in the digital edition is going to be simple. I'm going to have a free-flowing conversation and throwing in questions, picking up from some of the thoughts that have been shared by the educators, and then giving it as questions to the others as well. So let me start with Anjum. Let me start with you. My first question to you is, it's a very simple one. You run a group of institutions, right? And when the COVID first struck, and you had to make a lot of changes. Talk us through some of those, and I'm going to ask Dr. Karan, Gita, Karan, and Trista as well to respond to that opening question. What was your emotional reaction? Because a lot of times we get so mechanical about teaching that we forget the emotion and the whole human side of the response. So talk us through that, and then what did you change in the schools? Talk about the early days first.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Sultan. I'm sorry, good afternoon. Well, I think, we knew that COVID was happening and there might be an anticipated lockdown. I don't think anyone expected it to happen kind of as sudden as it did. So literally like overnight, like you had to kind of shift. I think that transition took probably within a week. We were pretty quick, and I'm really, really proud of not just our own teachers, but the entire set of teachers all across the country. Being digital immigrants, looking at the average age, they were not born with technology, they never learned through technology, and probably what would have happened, what they would have learned probably over the next few years, 3 to 5 years, they literally learned within a few weeks, I would say. I think one advantage that Glendale had was the fact that, we used the Chromebooks and we had Google Classrooms. So we were using a lot of technology, but obviously, there was more that needed to be learned. I think we had about 3 weeks of school, and luckily the term had ended in March when lockdown happened. And then we had about 3 weeks of the new term. And then summer was really an intensive time of, as you all know, a lot of webinars. And Glendale worked really hard in probably creating our own goal, what we call it. It's a Glendale online learning encyclopedia. So basically like A to Z, we kind of created all the different tools that can be used. So different heads, coordinators, heads of departments, in charges, everybody kind of spread out and took lots of things. And then we kind of collaborated that into an encyclopedia. Some of you may know I've written a book called The ABCs of Brain Compatible Learning. Well, I kind of updated that into the ABCs of brain compatible virtual learning, and what is it that we have to do under each of those particular areas. So to give you an example, like F is for feedback. Now feedback in an in-person scenario is very different, but you can use a lot of tools like SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, Mentimeter. So the same type of feedback had to be given, probably even quicker and more efficiently in the virtual scenario. So if you use graphic organizers, there was a lot of online tools like Creately. If you wanted to give them a quiz, you had things like Quizlet or Kahoot. So it took a little bit of time, and we told the teachers, just, do a couple of tools at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. But every week, you're just putting in more and more virtual tools into your teaching toolbox. And I think the thing that parents really wanted to know, Sultan, was in the online scenario, how is it justified that we charge the tuition that we're charging? And they just felt that they were not getting value in an online. So this is kind of universal throughout, not just the country, but probably elsewhere. So I think schools had to work, you know, twice as hard, three times as hard to make sure that we ensure that we're still delivering value. We're still keeping that social and emotional connect with the children, which is very challenging. We kind of created our own wellness formula. We rolled out something called the whole person approach, where we were talking about the body, mind, heart, and spirit. And every month we concentrated on a different dimension, and we gave different things about growing gratitude, because there was a lot of depression, anxiety, a lot of mental kind of unease that was there for everyone. So it was something that we had
Right, right.
teachers do and the students do. But I'll stop here. I can kind of go on and on, but this is kind of a little bit. So just shifting to the virtual scenario and making sure that it's still brain-based, and we're still keeping in mind how children learn, and harnessing all those tools that are available, slowly empowering the teachers with that, and then really keeping that social and emotional connect.
I think the point that stands out in what you've mentioned, and I think that's what's also been the hallmark of the teachers stood up to the challenge. I think, and that whole idea of them learning new skills to adapt to a very new environment which they had resisted for a long time. I think that stays as a hallmark. So I'm going to ask this question to, Dr. Gita, Karan. Ma'am, you're one of those stalwarts of education. You've been around for such a long time. And I also know that in your institution, you've had a lot of experienced teachers, and which was the strength for your schools. I mean, you run multiple schools, and that was a strength. In this lockdown, talk us through what was the challenge for you personally and for your teachers to adapt to the new digital format. Ma'am, you're on mute. You might want to just unmute yourself. Yes. Ma'am, you're on mute. You might. Srihari, you.
Right. Is that okay? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The world has undergone enormous changes, and the process of great upheaval, and also great possibility. Also, I should say, not just crisis. In a matter of months, actually, pandemics started spreading very rapidly. And all of a sudden, one piece of news dropped that the schools, it was like a bombshell, schools are shutting down in the outbreak of COVID. Okay? So parents started panicking, teachers were confused and stressed, and children, I'm sure, would have been happy because their vacation gets extended. That's what I thought. So there was only one solution to all these problems. And that was a drastic change in the new curriculum, that is the e-learning. Say goodbye to conventional classrooms, jug and mug theory, and then, which has become outdated, now get on to technology. That was my first reaction to it. The big challenge was that staying connected with the students online, adapting to new technology, teachers required, because not all teachers were well equipped with the technology. And we had to work very hard to see that the teachers within no time had to get back to get into technology. And, there are many first time learners using technology, first time they were taking online classes with technology. So we got experts, we got, our school, we formed groups, and within no time, teachers were ready for taking online classes. And in fact, actually, many parents were surprised that we have started our online classes so fast. So that was it. And the big, 82% I think all over are first time online teachers. That is what I have done.
Okay, my question
Online,
to you is a little more personal. Tell me about yourself. How did
yeah.
you, as a head of an institution, adapt to this? And what were some of the challenges you faced?
Well, the challenges I faced were some teachers need to be we had to handhold some teachers, and we had to get people who were, in the school itself to help them to, carry on with their online classes. And another challenge was that parents were also a big challenge, because you see, unless you have parents on your side, they are the best motivators for anything that you do. So we had to speak to parents and get them on our side to help the children monitor them that they are attending the classes regularly. And online classes, children, especially in the higher classes, from first, I think from seventh onwards, they can use unfair means, and they can be there and they not be there also. That was another challenge. So,
Great.
yeah.
You know what's heartening is for someone who's been around for what, 3, 4 decades. The way you are talking and the way you have kind
Yeah.
of adapted to the change. I think that's the beauty of what the pandemic has shown us. The skill was always there. According to
Yeah.
the life skill, it's called a critical thinking, and the
Yes.
creative thinking that follows
Yeah,
that.
we actually, the whole lot got together. We started working on it. How do we go about it? How do we meet this challenge so that it is very effective and productive for the children, and
Right.
also keeps the children interested in what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so
So
that
let me
was,
go to Dr. Trista now. Thank you, Dr. Karan, for those points. Trista, you come from the next generation, right? And you're leading this large group of schools and the university. And tell us the top 2 or 3 key challenges that you had to face and you worked, and what's worked for you.
Sure. Thank you, Sultan and Kalpa, for having me, and good afternoon, everyone. I think when we went into lockdown, the few weeks that followed were the most exciting weeks, I must say, when I look back at it. Um, we really had to reimagine school, and we were very intent on making sure that we give students a whole school experience. So, all through lockdown, we used to have 9 a.m. stand-ups across our schools and our teams, and really got us all together to work for one stakeholder. And we're thinking of the student, and how do we all come together, ensure whether it's co-curricular, socio-emotional well-being, academic structure, scheduling, timetabling, teacher touch points, technology, all of that had to come together for one student. Um, so the challenges that we did face was, how were we going to convince parents that this program is a good enough replacement for what students typically have. Another challenge was, how do we get our teachers up to speed and adapting to new technology, new implementation, new curriculum altogether. So these are the key challenges, and I think it was very, very exciting to roll it out. And uh, I think our students really showed us that we shouldn't even be afraid of holding back, that they are ready for anything and everything. And teachers have just risen to the occasion and implemented this new learning system, literally. Um, yeah, so those are the two challenges.
Right. One of the common things that I heard from all the 3 speakers so far has been the challenge from the parent, and I'm going to pick that up. It's an important and an integral point if you have to empower the teacher, and I'm going to talk about it a little later. Let me go to Bhavna, and Bhavna, you are from the other end of the world, and thankfully for the first time and probably a long time in history that all of us were sailing in the same boat. Otherwise, you had the developed world which had their own set of problems, and you had the so-called developing countries like ours having a different set of challenges. So talk us through what you saw from your point of view as an educator based in UK, and how do you resonate to some of the challenges which Gita ma'am, Trista, and Anjum have mentioned as well.
First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this panel as well. And similar to what Dr. Karan or Dr. Trista and or Anjum were saying, it was enlightening for me to hear and to see that actually, although I live in the UK, we actually are facing with the same issues and same ideas and same, like how to make the holistic for the child using the same challenges. And so it's not very different, although it is, as you said, Sultan, earlier, that although it is a developed country, UK, and as opposed to, other countries, we actually are very, very similar in the challenges that we face and the support that we are providing to the families around the world. So it's no different. We also have the same issues regarding parental engagement, regarding technology, and how to make it quick and working for the children and the teachers as well. So it is very, very similar. There's not much difference between India or in UK as well. So it's very similar as well.
It is said that adversity and calamity is a great equalizer, and COVID has absolutely proven that. It's brought the whole world on a similar level in a lot of spaces. In fact, even it's not just education. If you look at the healthcare, I think India, with whatever complaints that we've handled COVID as well or better than most countries in the world, considering the kind of population that we've had. And that's one good note for all of us here in India, that we have done as good a job as anybody else has done in the education space anywhere in the world. Devika, you've seen this very closely, and you wear a different hat. You are not in the field playing; you're more like a coach, from the outside. So, how did you view this entire change, especially from a teacher point of view, from the educator point of view? Walk us through what's been your observations.
So thank you, Sultan, for bringing me in. I was just thinking as everyone is speaking that I used to think I was a teacher and a school leader, like many of you are, and I thought that was the best time. And we used to think that the teacher's job was to just take a bunch of live wires and see that they are well grounded, like Daniel Martin said. But what I see now is that my life is surrounded by wires, and so many of them, all the time, just to get online and just to make sure that we are heard and seen. I think the biggest struggle that we faced, something like what Trista said, that in the beginning, that the dominant emotion was fear. I think the dominant emotion everywhere in the world was fear. And that's what we got bounded by together. Then the next thing was about what do we do with teachers? Like you were struggling with how do we get the schools going? We were struggling with how do we get teachers to still continue the learning, because there was no escape from continuous development and growth. So what I want to say at the start, that I'm very proud of the way Indian teachers rose to the occasion. I'm extremely proud of that, because I train at all levels, government schools, CBSE, ICSE, IGCSE, IB, everywhere, rural India, and just that simple smartphone, it's done such wonders. And I've seen people, little children logging in even in government schools. So they rose to the occasion. And my struggle, if any, or challenge was that how do I still keep them focused on their self-growth and development? Because they got so bogged down with just keeping the learning in the school going that coaching and training became very secondary. That's what was happening in the beginning. Plus, like many of us know that everybody was doing webinars. It seemed that that was the way of feeling that you're socially connected. That's the way I think it happened, because social interaction is what we were missing. And webinars gave us an opportunity to speak and to be heard. So there were hundreds of them, and became very difficult for Shikshangan to make that cut and that think about what's the difference of good learning versus so many free webinars with no offense meant anywhere. Absolutely. No? So that became a challenge. And I think the way we took it up, or the way I took it up, was that just learned so much on my own. Because we also, at the risk of sounding a little bombastic, in the pre-COVID days, I didn't feel any need of very good presentations and, the hook, the hep there and the hook there, because we're thinking, well, I'm there, it doesn't matter what the slide is, and I'm there. And now you are a single small window on the slide, and therefore by jazzing, I don't really mean just a drama, but making it more meaningful. I was listening to Anjum saying about brain-mind learning principles, and bringing those in a manner to the teachers which still makes sense about how do I transfer that into my classroom now, and yet keeping the theory very engaging and intriguing, because there's nothing that you can do without getting through with the theory first. So I think that was a challenge, and I've enjoyed reinventing myself a lot. So I think what Shikshangan is today, in these 6 months, I mean, that, it's the ability which completely goes, you have to reform and change yourself so much. And we are the happier for it, the richer for it. And all borders have dissolved, Sultan. I mean, like you introduced me in this, there's no border left. I mean, people are logging in from various other countries, and we're all learning together and sharing the struggles that we've gone through. So I think it's been a great learning time for me as a teacher trainer, as a teacher coach. And I'm very, very blessed in that.
It's a very positive, outlook to what's happened. Now, let me go to ask some real questions, right? So it was not all hunky-dory. I can imagine the kind of pains, Trista, I'm going to come to you. You must have gone through a lot of pains, and I'm sure not all teachers were those angels and you told them to jump and they asked you how high, right? And you've gone through those challenges of dealing with old mindsets, dealing with a very horse-blinded approach of some of the teachers. Tell us today, based on your experience in the past almost a year now, what are the dominant skills that you would want to see in teachers today when schools are going to reopen? And it's going to happen hopefully soon, and it's going to be a mix of digital and in school, and that's what I'm convinced about. What are the dominant skills that you would want to see in teachers, and what are those that you have not seen in your teachers so far?
I think I would look at it three ways. One is definitely technology, being able to navigate technology in a more seamless manner. That's definitely an expectation we can have of teachers, more so now than before. So teachers being not only navigating technology, but being the force to implement technology, hand-holding students, parents, and helping them adapt to new ways of communicating, interacting, and working together. I think teachers have that responsibility going forward. The second is to be connectors, and especially since we've gone 1 year without being physically in school, I believe our social emotional connections need a lot of attention, especially for our students, but definitely for our parents, between our community. And teachers have to play that role of being connectors and social connectors between students and build those emotional bonds in the classroom. And I think definitely a change in mindset that education can be turned upside down, and we have to reinvent ourselves, and we can do it. And as a community, we are able to do it. And education should be innovation based and changing all the time. And this is really woken us up. So I think teachers have to be champions of change going forward. So these are the three
Champions of change is very well put. Anjum, I know you stress a lot on teacher development. You yourself are a trainer, and you do this not just for your school, for a lot of other schools as well. I'm going to ask a similar question to you and to Bhavna, and then come to Devika to take her different perspective. What teacher training programs are you designing or thinking of for the coming year? What are you thinking of, and what are those, and how have you planned them? Because in the past it was simple. Get them into the auditorium and get a few resource purposes. I'm not talking about you, but in general, that was the scenario. How are you looking at the teacher upskilling programs in the coming year?
Well, I think, Sultan, we already had to do that this year, from probably April onwards. And we have now, we had already shifted basically what were our in-person workshops that were very hands-on, very fun. I personally love to make the teachers like children, and have them kind of relive their childhood and bring out that inner child to play, sing, dance, meditate, do drama, just, experience their full spectrum of, multiple intelligences. And only when they can tap into that can they, bring that out in our children. Now, in the virtual scenario, what we have to do is we have to optimize the facilities that are within the, technology. So like, say, for example, in Zoom, you can annotate on whiteboards, so you can kind of, share your voice, you can take polls, you can send your little emojis and hearts if you like what people are saying. So it's just a different way of interacting, and definitely, smaller groups. So you use the breakout rooms to connect. So whenever you want to say, you can talk about theory, you can talk about concepts, but until you have teachers discussing it as to what it means to them and how they would like to, implement that, it doesn't work. Like, in my book, I talk about in brain compatible learning, a lecture, your retention is like 5%, a presentation with visuals, okay, 20%. The moment you have a group discussion, like, say, even if it's in a breakout room, your retention level goes up to about 50%. So we need to create more of those things. What we've done this year is we've had most of our teacher toolbox shift to an online format. So, the handouts that you would give, now you have your PDFs, you have your videos, you have your, quizzes to kind of take an assessment, and then all your certificates keep getting added to your profile on your learning management system. So we use EdSense, and it is very visible, like all the different courses and e-modules our teachers have done, and they have these little certificates that they're certified in, trained in, say, graphic organizers, or the body-mind connection, or verbal linguistic intelligence, whatever it is that they've done, it's kind of, there. So they keep adding that to, their profile. And I think,
just sorry to interrupt you. My question was also on how do you see the in-school, in-person training and the digital learning get blended? Because this is what you did in an online world.
yes,
But how do you see that?
Combination of, like, maybe certain things when we can go back to the in-person scenario where you would do a lot of those, activities and hands-on learning, but then the theory part of it, or just maybe getting familiar, that would be asynchronous, and that the teachers would have flexibility to do it on their own time. Say you upload and make it, accessible to all the teachers. They have the following week or 2 weeks to, say, do it on their own time, read it and go through the material a little bit more, intensively. But we can actually create a way for them to experience that learning. Because remember, it's what I hear, I forget, what I see, I remember, what I do, I understand. So the part facilitate in the school, and the rest of it can actually be asynchronous.
So Anjum, what you've actually mentioned is, when you look at it from the digital world, the app world calls it on demand and on appointment. Yes. Right? So on demand is I choose when I want to learn, where I want to learn, and how I want to learn. And that's going to be the digital part. And appointment is you've scheduled a particular time, maybe in person or even digital, when all of us come together and learn. And that's a great way, not just for teacher training, but even for schooling for children, because you can have on demand and, on appointment, as the word goes.
And one more thing I forgot to mention, sorry, Sultan, is the e-portfolio. So we are now having children, encouraging them to develop their e-portfolios, but we're doing the same thing for teachers. So whatever it is that they're learning, like, for example, Project Zero at Harvard University, they have something called thinking routines. So it's a way for you to learn about a context, and you can use these variety of thinking routines. Now, teachers, whichever thinking routines they choose, they can use their children's work and create that in their portfolio. Like, well, I use See, Think, Wonder, and this is how I made my thinking visible in my classroom, whether it's online or in person. And they can.
And my only wish is that going forward, the schools will start focusing on the portfolio of a child, not the marks card alone of a child.
No, we
So
are
let
already
me
doing that.
right. So Bhavna, let me get you in here, and you've been helping in quality of schools. So, and you've done a lot of assessment of different schools in the past. How do you see schools in England coping up, and the kind of teacher development programs? What do you see the changes in the coming months when schools reopen?
Well, our schools have always been reopened. So although we've been in lockdown, and it says in the news and in the media and through the Prime Minister, schools are closed, we are actually open. And we are actually open for worker children. So all the key workers, whether they work in NHS or whether they work in the supermarket, as long as they can provide us with evidence to say that they are key workers, they are actually attending school. So the teachers are actually doing a three-way system. They're coming into school on a rota basis where they're teaching children face-to-face. We are also doing recordings for the children and doing live sessions. So we are actually doing three things at once. And it has been quite a big challenge for us, but we are doing a lot of in-house training. So myself and the other senior leadership team, we do a lot of in-house training for CPT purposes, not only for teachers, but all the teaching assistants as well, who are supporting the children. And it's not just, we are also catering for those children who've got special educational needs or who may be struggling with additional work. So we are doing, as you said, on-demand sessions or appointment sessions, and teaching assistants when they are not working in school, when they're not in school, they're actually at home recording the sessions, which we have done in-house CPD for them all the sessions are recorded. And so we can also monitor the quality of it and what's going out, and also making sure from safeguarding point of view that our staff are safe and there is no any safeguarding issues involved with it as well. We also have external professionals do staff meetings, virtual staff meetings. So based on the needs of the teachers and the children, we invite externals to come in and not come in like virtually, do the staff meetings and provide that platform to all staff as well.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for sharing that. And my next question is to Madam Gita and Devika to bring in two perspectives. It is said, and it's actually a well-researched fact, that if someone's into smoking and wants to quit smoking, it is said that if they can give up smoking for 6 months, the chances are that they will quit smoking completely. So that means to build habits, you need 3 to 6 months. Now, for almost 9-10 months, our kids are used to a digital learning habit, and our teachers are used to a digital teaching habit. The teachers are relatively easier, but the challenge is, how do you change that mindset? So, Madam Gita, Karan, my question to you is, children are in a habit of learning digitally. They can switch off the cameras, like you said, or they can, they can play a lot of tricks. Now, how do you see that challenge when schools reopen in the new world? Ma'am, you're on mute. You might, I can ask my tech. Srihari, if you can just unmute her, please.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you can speak now.
Got it. Yeah. Well, habit, doesn't go like as soon as you want it to go. So actually, it's over a period of time that you can get rid of that habit. Children have got used to this online learning, but now in schools, when they come back, it is, of course, online learning has become a habit, and they were enjoying it because they had so many other side distractions. But now coming back to school, we cannot totally get divorced from the online teaching. It has to go with the physical teaching. We have to use the technology along with our offline teaching. So that is one way, and gradually they get back. We were using technology earlier also in our classrooms. So it isn't such a big thing. Actually, the challenge is very minimal, I should say, think, for children to get back to offline teaching. So I think the teachers also found it very normal, because our classes are already going on. In 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, our classes are going on. And the children and the teachers have adjusted to this new system very well, using technology plus because you cannot just hand over a computer to a child and say, okay, you learn by yourself. Teachers have to guide them, and then there is something like robotic teaching, and without a person, programming has to be done with the robotic teaching, and children have to have some guidance from the teachers, from the person. So that one-to-one connect is there, along with technology. So I don't think that habit has to be really broken as such of using technology. Otherwise, also, even if it is not a lesson, but children are always on computer, on internet. You see, they use it for games and whatever they do with the computer. They are always on the internet, besides taking lessons from the schools. So I think that was actually a challenge for the teachers to find out new strategies, new ways of delivering the curriculum, and that's how it was for us. And I think the challenge was very minimal, getting them out of the habit of using technology.
So let the habit remain. It's a good digital habit to have. So yes. Devika, getting you in here, talk us through how do you see the transition happening? Because for me personally, I believe that 21 is going to be like a bridge year. It's not going to be like, it's never going to be like 2019. I don't think that's ever coming back. It's going to settle down in 22. 21 will have a lot of bridging to do. So what are those challenges that you see, and what do you see?
So, Sultan, I'll begin with what's happening now, which is quite miraculous, because just to give you an example, we have a flagship program for the school leaders, the school leadership program, which we used to do just twice a year in the pre-COVID times in a residential mode in the Western Ghats where we live. And and it was marvelous, because it'd stay talking right through dinners and walks and in the mountains and all of that. We moved that to online, and we moved it to online, and same 5 days, Monday to Friday, but only 2.5 hours a day as compared to 6 hours a day earlier. But what I find, and here is the interesting thing, it's 2.5 hours of dedicated attention that I get. There was so much of distraction in the 6 hours of face-to-face. Chai aa gayi, something else is happening, somebody else wants to go for a walk. Here I find is dedicated. Another thing what I find is there's a quick sharing of resources in the chat box. So just yesterday I was talking about there is no one better than Susan Brookhart for rubrics. And quickly the link was shared. It was open, shared on the shared screen. We went through the rubrics of Charlotte Danielson. We said, this is the framework of teaching that we need to look at. So this, which is happening, quick sharing of resources, I thought that was quite interesting for me. The second thing, which I thought I should point to, is that apart from the fact that we now do the leadership program every month and we have subscriptions every month, what the other thing is that there is no hard stop to work. So if you're not, at 5 p.m., 7 p.m., we're asking people, would you like to log off? And said those who want to log off can log off. Can we have some more discussions? And so the discussions go on, they log back after dinner, we share resources. So I think this is the inspiring thing for me of what has happened for teacher training. So I'm not talking about the tools, and Anjum has already explicitly explained those. And we're using all of those, of course, in Zoom and other platforms. But I'm talking about the spirit and the desire to learn, because this is what was missing. I believe that India needs a lot of push for our teachers to be, to become professionals in terms of engaging in professional discussions, also engaging in their own growth professionally. I think that's happening much more now. So that's one thing. To answer your other question about how do I see it happening in 2021? So I think there will be a lot, I find a lot of comfort in online, not just for myself, but even for my students, the trainees, they find a lot of comfort because of what I just explained earlier. They're doing it from their home. They're doing it after dinner or whenever they want. So that's one. The second thing is some bit of face-to-face might be required, I think. I don't know how and when, because I believe, and I might say that later if you ask me another question, that I think, like Grant Wiggins has said, that less teaching but more feedback is what will endure learning, actually. So that feedback, which is very continuous, because formative feedback is a part of pedagogy. And as you're teaching, as you're coaching, you're constantly giving feedback, not really for assessing, but for development. That I think is taking a hit. That's taking a hit when we are doing only online. So I think we might want to go back. I might want to go back there for that kind of a hand-holding. That's what I see happening.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward.
Thank you. Now, thanks, and very interesting perspectives. Now, I want to move the segment of our conversation to the next. Let's move out of our schools. Let's move out of what we are doing as educators. And my set of questions, I'm going to point it to one of the one of the panelists. The others are, please feel free to add in. So let me start with you, Trista. Why should teacher be a resource only for one school? Because if you look at teacher as a resource, in the past, there were some outstanding teachers, but they were so limited to that 100 kids that they were teaching in a school. Even in a school population of 1,000, they at best were teaching 100 to 100 children. Whereas today, there is an opportunity to do that. So what would be your initial thoughts on, should teachers be shared resources? And why should we limit the capability of a teacher?
If I were to put on my school promoter and school leader hat, Sultan, I would say that I'd want our teachers to be with our students just to maintain culture and have every school has its own culture, and to be able to have that culture, you need that teacher invested in one type of functioning, and the student has to experience that culture for 1 year, 2 years, 12 years, and only then they're going to embody that kind of behavior. So I would say, that's why teachers should be with us. But on the other hand, I think to your point, we have enough and more edtech players who are trying to solve that problem and really bring out master teachers that are available to everybody. So I think there's enough room for both systems to function. And as a school leader, I would definitely want my culture to be retained and presented to students continuously.
Anjum, you want to respond to that? I see you already unmuted yourself. So.
No, I completely agree with Trista. I mean, it depends on what hat I would be wearing to answer that, because an institution is, the teachers make up the institution, right? Those who are there, committed, working diligently with that set of students. But it doesn't mean that if, say, somebody is an excellent economics teacher or physics, it doesn't mean that they can't, have a master class of sorts, and have that available. I mean, there are many teachers who take private tuitions, and they are very adept in their particular subject. So maybe, in terms of having access to more students, and I think it's already happening. I mean, some are taking, small, Zoom tuition classes and things like that. So
right. Let me move on. Yes, Bhavna, do you want to respond to that? Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to mention that in our school, we have
I want to add something.
Of 11 schools, and we are already doing that. So the teachers who are very adept and already comfortable in delivering those expert sessions, or are they're an expert in their subjects, they are actually delivering sessions to different schools within the academy trust, because they feel comfortable. And we are doing the same if we feel that somebody in a different school is able to provide that external support and CPD to the teachers within school. We are doing that. So for example, I've got a specialism in English as an additional language, because we've got about 40-50% of Eastern European children in our school. Now I lead I support the children in my school and the families who have English as additional language. But I'm also working with the speech and language team for the local authority, and I deliver sessions to them as well, to the local community as part of my expertise in English as an additional language. So we are already doing that in UK, and particularly in my school and the 11 schools that we are embedded together with. So
yeah, thanks. And that's a great perspective. Gita, ma'am, yes, please
Yes.
respond.
I think a school is like a community within a community. And the teachers here can definitely be spared for the, the specialists, especially in subject specialists, can be spared to go to another school and teach, or we can get people from various walks of life to come and talk to our children. But a teacher has to be, that sense of belonging must come for a teacher when she's in a particular school. So we can't do away with teachers. Their teachers have to be there, because unless they are there, the children also accept a person. We see, like they accept their parents at home. Like that, the teachers, children also accept a teacher. She is our person who we go to when we have problems and when we need some emotional support. So I think it is very, very necessary for teacher to be in one place, but can extend herself beyond the school. Like we have a blind school right next door. Our children and teachers go and teach there, talk to them, tell them stories. Then we do, and we have these, special education section in our school. And some of the teachers who are good with them, they go and, conduct some activities. In fact, our children also go there and conduct activities. When once a year we do have competitions for many schools who are the special schools in the within the city. Some kind of competitions we have, and we invite them to our school, and these teachers do help out. So they are there everywhere. Actually, it's not just confined to one school, but they have to be confined also to one school, because that sense of belonging will not come. Nor the teachers, nor the children will accept a person who they can go and talk to for anything. They need to have one person who they need to interact with.
That's a lovely and a very interesting response, and I've got 4 different responses. While the school culture is important, I think digital allows today to share that knowledge. And remember, and actually, for a person like me, I've been in education but not running an institution for now 2 decades. And I've always looked at some amazing institutions, and each one of you runs some great schools yourself. But somewhere the only problem that I've always had with schools is you don't collaborate and share as much with other schools as much as I think, because the ones who've done it are only entrepreneurs. And there are, why is India's best school not creating India's best study material? And why was it some graduate from IIT coming out and creating that? It's a question that's there. And I'm going to leave it at that question. Let's move on to the next point, which actually Gita, Karan ma'am brought out, that your children go outside and teach. Now, when we're talking on the subject of a teacher, schools have always believed that there is a bunch of people who are a part of my staff, right? Today, technology allows, and the need for children and the kind of overall development requires a lot more people to contribute to the teaching of a child, if I have to word the word teaching, right, to the growth of a child. So, Devika, I'm going to come to you. There is an opportunity for the corporate, for the parent, for the senior school students, for other school teachers. There's an opportunity which now emerges, and technology allows it to happen. So what are your perspective of who should be teaching? Of course, you need the class teacher, you need a certain set of teachers who are guardians of culture, but there are lots of things that can happen beyond that. What is your perspective on the world being a teacher to the school?
So I was listening to the inputs which were coming from everyone. And, if you just look at the National Education Policy 2020, it's anyway talking about, seeing whether you can take something from the cluster of schools, which is around you. So they're talking about the clusters and whether you could share resources. NEP came, and we were not expecting the pandemic to be this way. But that idea is there and it's going to come to us anyway, along with multilingualism and many other things that NEP is talking about. But I agree that it's a good idea to share the resources. But are we really sure of what kind of resource are we sharing? That would be my concern, because how do you really, it again goes back, Sultan, to understanding, our own ideas about who's an effective teacher. Or, is it okay to send our students because they need to go to, with no offense meant, because they need to go and do some CAS or something and complete that with somebody who might, because I think I have some objections and reservations about sending out our children simply because they have a need to go and do some social service, rather than looking at what is the need of the people where we are sending them. Are they in need of some learning which is specific, and then am I able to deliver through my school? That's something that we need to ask and check. On the same note, I also wanted to add here, though, that what exactly needs to be taught is the question.
Right.
And I believe, and this is something very serious, I think, that the pandemic has done. So we always had this issue about many students who were lagging behind, whether it's Bhavna in England or we here or anywhere else. And there are students who are going to lag behind. And we know from research that the lag is simply a deficiency in what is known as the background knowledge or the prerequisite skills that are required. I believe with all our think tank that we have discussions in, then that this lag is going to be increasing immensely in the pandemic. No matter what you do, whether it's hybrid teaching, face-to-face, simply online, Zoom, class time, Socrative, Mentimeter, take what you will, but the lag is going to increase. So I'm looking at, can we prepare those who want to go out and teach, even our students, a great idea that Gita ma'am shared. I think that the lag, what we need to plug in is simply vocabulary and fundamental mathematics. When I say vocabulary, it's not English. What I mean is vocabulary of all subjects, because I think I like to say that each word has knowledge. And that vocabulary, if we can just plug that when our students go out to teach, because every teacher is first a language teacher and she needs to get the vocabulary of her own subject done, which is not happening. And I've seen, I've got a lot of silver in my hair, and I've seen in your city of Bangalore how my grandchildren are studying online and hybrid, etc. And I think that we will need to do a lot more when they come back to school. And that lag, and I just want to mention here, because it might be of interest, we are all educators, if you're looking very seriously at the work of Susie Pepper Rollins and her work on accelerated teaching versus remedial teaching, because remedial is such a backward movement, just go fix whatever went wrong. But acceleration is a fantastic strategy. It's a strategy which prepares a student just in time for the present, thus bringing them up to speed with the rest of the class. And I think that's what we need to look at when we're thinking about sharing our resources. So the key point being, during sharing of resources, which is a great idea, we also need to be clear about what exactly do we want them to do. And that needs to be thought through, I thought. And so this is the way I would look at it. And we're also preparing our teachers, Sultan. So we do a lot of programs for teachers as well. And we're preparing them for these strategies, which I think are going to be required much more in 2021 than they ever were, especially the strategy of accelerated education, which is not for gifted children, it's for all the children. Otherwise, you think acceleration, and you just marry that with the gifted idea. And I have my own reservations of giftedness as well, even though NEP wants to call it out. But I think every student is a gifted student. But I won't talk about that. But about those who are lagging behind, are likely to lag behind more in the pandemic, can we send out our teachers and our students, as Gita ma'am is so nicely doing, to plug these gaps which are going to come up? And I'm suggesting vocabulary of all subjects and fundamentals of mathematics, and everything else will fall into place quite magically. So research suggests.
I think the need of sharing resources, digital technology allows us to do. So when we talk about sharing a good physics teacher or a language teacher from a school, they don't need to leave the confines of the school. They could they can just create that content and leave it out there, like a Salman Khan did and created the Khan Academy. Every other school has a few Salman Khans who can create fabulous content. And on the other hand, there are a lot of other people, apart from the teachers, who can contribute. So I'm going to move to the last part, which will be the Q&A from the audience that's listening in today. But before that, I wanted to ask one last question, and this is addressing the elephant in the room, right? The devil in the room, the parent, right? For the first time, we left the parent in the classroom, right? I remember the good old schools, the parents were not even allowed literally inside the gate, or you sought an appointment and then you met anybody and everybody. But then, because it's a digital class, the parent literally came in and said, "Hello, ma'am, how are you doing? Why is my son studying?" So we've heard all kinds of stories. So the parent came in the classroom. I'm going to start with Gita, Karan, ma'am, and I would love responses from the others as well. So I would want you to tell me, how are you equipping a teacher to handle that close proximity to the parent or the access to a parent? And are you contemplating any guidelines? Because schools are always a system and a process. Are you contemplating any digital hygiene or guideline? Geeta, ma'am, I'm going to start with you with that question and then move on to a couple of other responses.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I think since the parents were involved in the teaching of online teaching with their children, so I think they have more respect now for the teachers. They have developed that. Till now, they were not aware of what was happening in school. They thought that the teacher always just gave them knowledge, and that is about it. And the children had to do the homework and they have to do the learning and everything. But now they have realized the using of different strategies, different ways of learning, which are taught online. And that, I think, has helped parents to realize what it takes to be a teacher. And now parents, actually, we involve our parents so much in our school that, we know, if we know a doctor, a dentist, supposing a parent is a dentist, we invite him to come to the lower classes and talk to the children. It's not like a formal talks, just he's standing on the stage and children all around. He may just sit anywhere and with children around and talk to them about the care of teeth or whatever the subject topic is. So involving parents, making them as partners in your teaching learning process, I think helps a lot. You can find a lot of parents who can be of great use to your school. Because there are parents from IT, there are parents who are doctors, there are lawyers, and we have career building. When parents, we realize that there are parents who can help us with the career options of deciding careers for children. We do invite them to school to talk about their career, what they are doing, and how what they have to do to reach a certain goal. So, and also children during the holidays, what we do is that we ask our children, the middle school, like shadow your parent. Go to your parents' father's or mother's office and see what the parent is doing. Learn from that and make your own assessment of whether what the parent is doing is, can I also do that? That kind of, bringing parents, children, and school close. It's like it's like a community itself. Small. Yesterday, somebody was mentioning, I don't want to use that word triangle, but I think they have to work together. Unless parents and school work together, it cannot be a success.
Sure.
So parents have to be involved in our school. They have to be there for us whenever we want them. And many parents are very happy. In fact, they're so happy to come to talk to children. They're very happy to share their experiences with our children. Like from the army, we invited one person who came and spoke to them about the difficulties they face and, the kind of problems they face. The children definitely, learn from that. They learn how to deal in life, So there are so many things that, unless you have to have parents, in your school who will help you to carry out certain duties also. In fact, when we invite parents to come and talk to our children, children are so excited. Oh, my parent is here today, like he's going to share his experiences with the other children. They feel so proud. We have a Parents' Day where we have activities for parents also in our school. And that gives them a sense of belonging also to the school. Parents also feel, yes, this is my school. My child's school is my school. But
Right.
of course, not all parents are the same way. There are parents who do have no sense of belonging. They think we have given the child to the school, they have to do everything. But I find that in our schools, majority of the parents are very happy with getting involved with the school activities.
Trista, I'm going to ask the same question to you, but I want you to specifically address, every school has its set of problem parents, right? They create a problem digitally and even physically. So you always have to handle them. So digitally, what have you, created? Because, what have you learned and how do you protect a teacher? Because I know in some cases, because we keep in touch with a lot of schools, they can be extremely abusive. Parents can be extremely intrusive, in a lot of ways. And digital gives them the access because you can't control, whether they can be in the face of the teacher. So what are your thoughts going forward, and how do you protect? Because it can be very harmful to the psychology or the morale of a teacher a lot of times. So how are you looking to do that in your group schools?
Yeah, absolutely, Sultan. When we reopened school, I think this was one of the key concerns we had. We're putting our teachers out there. It's a new mode of learning and teaching, and they're suddenly in everybody's living room. How do we handle this challenge? And surprisingly, it wasn't such a big deal, because parents were apprehensive. They did want to, at maybe the first class, second class, they did want to sit in and see what the teacher is saying, who's their class teacher. But we sent out handbooks beforehand, and we detailed to parents saying, this is how we're going to roll out the academic year. These are expectations from students, these are expectations from parents, and we laid that out and we oriented them beforehand. And that sort of set an expectation that we're doing it all for the first time, and we showed our vulnerability to the parent body, saying that we're not going to get it right, but we want you with us because this is the only option we have. And I think that that openness and honesty made parents feel like we are in this journey together, and made them feel like we are partners with teachers, and not we're not going to be here to question teachers and make them really feel more apprehensive with the role that they have to play. So our parent body was actually very, very supportive. And once they saw that their child could handle virtual learning by themselves, they could log in, they could ask questions, the teacher was there. Once they saw that, and because they were imagining it in their head, now when they saw it practically, they said, okay, this is what it looks like, I'm fine with it. And we have never had a parent really sit in on a class, or interrupt or disrupt a class. That hasn't been the case. I
No,
think
Trista, my question is not what's happened in your school. I think you're being, these can happen. What are you planning, and how are you preparing your teachers for that? How are you going to safeguard if that happens? Or are you going to, that was my question. I didn't mean that, but it has happened in some schools. It's not happened in yours. So, I was talking about a process.
yes, I think
How would you support it?
openness towards where we are, and that this is the reality of the world, and teachers are going to make mistakes in their classroom. Let's accept that. And the head of school always being able to close out conversations very quickly. I think that is very helpful. And another thing is, teachers do have the ability to send somebody out of the class. So really log them out. And what's very discouraging for the class is to have a parent disrupt and cause an issue, and it continue, and the teacher being in a very vulnerable situation. So one indication we have given to teachers is, please log them out, send them out of class as you might. They should not even be in front of our students and really disrupting the class. It sets a wrong example. It makes you look like you don't have control over the situation. So using technology tools, also being very firm and saying, this is not the right time. The channel can be XYZ channel can be used to highlight this issue. I'm going to be logging you off, and I'm going to be sending you out of the class. So really communicating that and being confident that what I'm doing is right, and really equipping teachers with that confidence, and that as a community coming together and saying, we're going to do this together, and anything that you might face, we'll figure it out. We don't know all the issues that might come up yet.
Sure. Thanks a ton for that. I'm going to pick up the questions now and come to my panelists. And in the meantime, if any of the panelists would feel free to just go on the Q&A and respond, you can also respond to any of the questions. You would feel free. Anjum, I'm going to start with you. There's a question. Can you talk us through the one second, wait. E-portfolio that you were talking about. So there have been a couple of questions on that. Can you just talk us through the e-portfolio? Because even I believe that students, we need to be creating portfolios, not marks cards for them. Can you just talk us through that?
Sure. So basically, Glendale group of schools, we hold great pride in being a school for the multiple intelligences and helping both teachers and faculty discover their full spectrum of human potential. So we used to have hard portfolios that we would kind of collect, with showcasing, how they're exploring their different intelligences. And now in the virtual scenario, we have, e-portfolios. The other thing that is a requirement, because we're also a school, a Leader in Me school. So you have, the 7 habits of highly effective people. And there's a lot of documentation and evidence that you are using to showcase how you're moving towards your wildly important goals, that you are being proactive about, that you're prioritizing, how you're synergizing with, people and things around you, so there's documentation for that. So broadly speaking, we have about 8 intelligences and 8 habits that we're trying to, use in this e-portfolio. You can use a lot of online resources, but just even a simple PowerPoint is enough, where you can actually paste either pre-made templates and you can write on it. You can also, add pictures, you can add links. Our teachers have used a lot of Padlets as well. You can use a resource like that as well, a Padlet. But what has been really most successful, and the previous question that you had about partners, parents as partners in education and how you do that. So this whole person approach that I had mentioned at the beginning of the program, that's really been a great success, because what we're doing is we're showcasing every month, we're focusing on one dimension. So for example, if you're doing body, it's about how the parents and the children in their home, how they're doing these like little fitness challenges. So parents have actually been quite enthusiastic on sending videos of them and their young child, doing these different fitness challenges. They've set up very creative obstacle courses within their homes, across sofas and with some masking tape on the floor and things like that. Spending time in nature, taking care, because there's a lot of electromagnetic radiation that happens on Zoom and Google Meet. So you need to really be able to ground yourselves with nature energy and to dispel all those positive ions that you're getting from that electromagnetic radiation. So getting the parents involved has been really successful. When we did the heart domain, parents and children were keeping gratitude jars, kindness counts, building emotional connect within the home, the emotional bank deposits in each other's, emotional bank accounts, which is
and all of this gets recorded in the e-portfolio.
Yes. So what we had is we had beautiful templates for every dimension, again, covering the intelligences and the habits. And within that week or that fortnight or that month, we were actually having evidence of pictures of the child doing that. So the parents got involved, especially if they're younger children, in taking those pictures and then uploading, that on the template. So that was kind of something that everybody was doing. Every child was doing it. Even the teachers were doing it. Even the heads were doing it. So everybody was showing how they're evolving, across these dimensions. And that had actually become kind of a wellness formula for us as well, to take us through this pandemic, as well as sharpen our saw as well.
Great. I think it's a great idea for all schools to be focusing on that. The Western universities have always insisted on looking more at a portfolio than at the marks cards. The NEP, if you look at it closely, it very categorically states that academics, co-curricular, extracurricular, whatever you call it, they would be equal. I think, and I hope that we see that happening in action. Because here's my prediction. If it is academics, I think online teaches as well as most schools in this country today. Right? Let's be clear about it. We accept that. So the experiences is what you don't get, which is what schools can create. Bhavna, you wanted to say something?
I was totally finished. Yeah, I was to just reiterate what Anjum said. We also have e-learning portfolios for each and every child in school, and any recordings that they do at home with parents or any work that they do, along with verbal feedback and written feedback, is given on that portfolio for that individual child, which only they can see. And it is a good way of connecting to parents as well. And following back on the previous question about parental engagement, and we record each and every session that we do live meets in the morning where we have interaction with children and parents as well, and sort of set out the day. So like in the morning, the teacher at 9 o'clock will meet the kids and say, like, how's the day been, and what they're expected to do in the day, the work that is being set out for them. And so the parents sometimes from the other point of view, we also let parents know that each and every session is being recorded, so that they know that if they say something which they shouldn't say or whatever, it's all being recorded as well. So yeah, really good parental engagement from our schools as well. And it's also, we also have a parent forum where we check with parents before instilling anything, implementing anything within school. We take parental voice through the parent forum consultation, and also from the children as well. So it's like all stakeholders are doing the work collaboratively in the thing. So it's worked really well for our schools.
Fantastic, and thank you for that perspective. And I'm going to come towards the end, and if I can request all the panelists, if you can see, I've seen Devika has been responding to some of the questions. I acknowledge the questions, but it's just the lack of time, like Chetan and Sangamitra have asked a couple of questions. Let me just take one of them and quickly ask one of our panelists to respond before I close with one final question. Chetan's question is about rural India, and how does the whole digital online blended learning work, and are we going to leave them out? And Devika was very vocal that there are a lot of people that we're leaving out, and it's a fact, because one of my teams does a lot of work with the government schools, and we know for a fact that they have been completely out of education. A large section of children in this country, this panel was upper middle class of this country. Our audience is upper middle and middle class of this country, and that's the focus that we had for the Mentor Conclave. But then the moment you look at the segment, which is the government schools, the rural, and there's another segment, which is the special needs, right? And just wanted any one of you to just put up your hands and respond. How do they relate, the rural and the special needs children in this country? What do you see their thoughts on? Yes, Devika.
You're on mute.
I just want to clarify one thing. When I was looking at a backlog, I wasn't looking at just the rural children. I'm saying that there is going to be a lot of backlog in all of your schools, such as yours, and the most elite schools as well.
That's fine, but my question is specifically about rural and the special needs, differently abled children.
Right. So I can only talk about the rural, and I'm not an expert on the special needs, but I think that it's a very frightening situation. It's a very frightening situation in our country where the rural children, well, one thing is that something is going on. I mean, it's not as if it's zero. Teachers are trying. They're making an effort. There are smartphones, and but I think that we are going to be facing a gap of a year probably when the schools reopen finally. So we'll have to see what we can do about that.
Ma'am, Gita, Karan, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to talk about the children with special needs. You will be surprised to know that we were having online classes through activities for these special children in our school. And they were very happy. Parents were sitting with them, and the children did acquire a lot of knowledge. And in fact, you will be, I would like to tell you that the sections that we have, the special section children, 2 of our children have already passed inter, and one is preparing for metric. And, we are connected with we are associated with the NIOS. And I think if every school, I shouldn't be saying every school, if most of the schools take on this responsibility of having these special children in their school, integrating them partially first, and then total integration. Of course, we couldn't do too many children. Only about 2 children were totally integrated into the normal stream. But if most of the schools do this, take on this responsibility of addressing the special needs children, needs for the special children. So I think there would be it will make a lot of difference. And as for the rural, I would like to tell you that I think they should have a separate curriculum for them. I don't know whether it's feasible or not, but I feel that way, that they should have a separate curriculum for them, depending on which area of village or which area where they stay. Unless there is a special curriculum for them, it is very difficult. And now with this teaching of in Hyderabad, Telugu, teaching in Telugu and all that. So what do you want these children to remain, if not to go up at all? Regional language is considered to be now the medium of instruction in all the government schools up to a certain stage. But then these children will always lag behind. So I think if we base the curriculum on the needs of the children in rural areas, that would make a lot of difference in our country. I think rural area children are totally neglected in our country. Now, you see, education should be given the top priority in our country, and that is the least given. I think this year only, I think it has gone up a little bit, but otherwise, education is given the least priority in our country. And that should be on the head of the list, actually. If we want,
and that's a sad reality. While the upper middle class schools have coped really well, and learning has continued very clearly, when it comes to the lower economic strata of the country, whether it's in big cities or even in rural parts of India, education has suffered, and we need to acknowledge that and accept that. And hopefully the digital divide can be bridged through the digital devices that we have, hopefully in future. Bhavna, you wanted to add something as a last comment before we close.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about the special educational needs. Now in UK, I don't know how much it's feasible in India, but in UK, because of the schools are still open for key worker children, but also for high needs, special educational needs kids. So if your children have autism or they've got ADHD or any high needs behavior needs, they are expected to be attending school. So we do have them in school on a personalized curriculum. Those children who are also on special educational needs, they have additional one-to-one live sessions in the afternoons where parents can sit with them, and those sessions are taking place. So that's how we are sort of catering to the needs of the special educational needs children. Although majority of the kids are not coming, there are only a few, like 20-30% of kids are attending school. That's how we are addressing the needs of the special educational children.
Sure. Thanks. And I just want to bring in, I was doing a session yesterday on life skills and mental well-being. And one of the panelists was Manju Arif, who is the principal of the Delhi Public School. And she has a large number of special needs children, almost 800 of them in her school, which is very large for a school. And she had something very beautiful to share. She said that digital is one of the best things that's happened for a lot of special needs children, because they get personalized attention. They are in a comfortable place because they're in their homes. And when you cut out the noise, the bullying and the prying eyes, and the teacher is just talking to them, she's seen, in her words yesterday, she said that she's seen, education outcomes improve by 50% for children with special needs. So digital actually has a great advantage to give that special focus to these children. And on that positive note, I just want to end and ask one simple question, and I want one-word answers from all my panelists. If you're recruiting a teacher now, what's the one skill that you would be looking for in there? What's that one skill that you would look at, the top priority? I'm going to start with Gita, Karan, ma'am. Yes.
Love for children.
Love for children. Devika.
Adaptability.
Adaptability. Anjum.
I would say enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Trista.
I would say agility.
Agility.
Same.
And Bhavna?
Resilience.
Resilience. Wow, thank you so much, ladies. It was such a pleasure. We've gone through a plethora of different aspects of teachers, online, in school, parents. We spoke about the challenges of adapting technology. We spoke about, teacher being a shared resource for the world or bringing the world into the school. We spoke a lot about, special needs. And it's all a conversation going on. It's all a wonderful journey that all of us are in. I'd like to thank everyone, Trista, Bhavna, Anjum, Devika, and Gita, Karan, ma'am. Yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question. You've asked
yes,
us many questions. Do you think schools should have vocational education?
Yes, there's no doubt in that. This is what I predict. I love talking in this language, right? The future of education, what I see is a lot of academic subjects and knowledge and information should happen more online. Because I want to study math at 10 in the night and not at 9 in the morning. So allow me that time to teach. Whereas the schools will become a space where we learn skills, right? And skills which become relevant for living a better life or in the workspace. So I don't teach me English, teach me how to speak well, right? Or teach me along with English, teach me how to speak. Don't just teach me math, teach me finance management, teach me how to handle my money. So those are skills which children, and remember, online will find it very difficult to compete with school on the experiences part of it. So I would love to see schools becoming that space where kids are running into school because they are bored of the digital learning online, and they're coming to school to meet friends, to learn, and with experiences. I think that's what I would like to see schools.
I think that's beautiful, Sultan. I
Yes.
can provide that experiential learning because Einstein said knowledge is experience, everything else is just information. So leave the information bit of it to online, and schools would be places where they can experience, be enriched, be empowered. May I just say one thing that I just would like to tell the audience to check out? I'm actually at Harvard right now, and I'm taking a course on universal design for learning. I really, really recommend that people research that, because I think every school needs to not just reform, but transform, in this 21st century and what we're actually going through. And there's a website called CAST, C-A-S-T. I'll put it in the chat. And the tagline is where learning has no limits, where it gives you the whole universal design for learning framework, a lot of resources, and it talks about all the assistive technologies that would be there for learner variability. So whether your child has special needs or, the mainstream, kind of covers the entire gamut. So I really recommend that. And I think, Sultan, that's what you were saying.
Sure. I can vouch for it as well.
1 minute, Sultan, I want to just say one thing, that the role of the school, something like this, can I say it in Hindi?
आप बिल्कुल बात करें मैडम, हम हिंदी समझते हैं और काफी लोग यहाँ पे हिंदी बोल भी लेते हैं अच्छे से। साउथ इंडियन है लेकिन हिंदी अच्छी ठीक ठाक बोल लेते हैं हम।
पेड़ आंगन में ऐसे लगाना ताकि चाहिए जिसके छाया दूसरे के घर में जाना चाहिए. This is what the schools should do. That I would like to end with that, with my...
Wonderful. With that note, thank you, Gita, Karan, ma'am. And I would also like to sincerely thank Madhvi from Gitanjali, Devshala. Gita, Karan, ma'am definitely knows her really well. She's the daughter of Gita, Karan, ma'am, and she's been the host school, putting the panel together and inviting the schools and helping the Mentor Conclave be such a success. We've had almost 300 people joining in for the online session today. So thank you all so much. And on behalf of Kalpa, the editor of Mentor magazine, and the entire team at Mentor, I'd like to thank all of you for joining in. It was great chatting up with you, and all the very best for the new year ahead and a new world of learning ahead. Thank you and have a great day.